On the first day, the official delegates assembled for the opening ceremonies in the Royal Opera House, where in the presence of King Gustav Adolf, they listened to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Kurt Waldheim.
Ladies and gentlemen, everything is of concern to everybody in our deeply interdependent world today. The iron rule remains. Our world is one, inseparable, and interdependent.
The whole city of Stockholm was caught up in the conference. The conference symbol appeared everywhere, and the pre-conference publicity brought thousands of unofficial observers from all over the world to Stockholm. The government of Sweden provided facilities for all of them. At Skarpnäck, an abandoned airfield on the outskirts of town, it even set up a tent city for the many young people who could not pay for lodgings. The official meetings were held in 3 separate conference buildings. But Swedish radio and television also carried the scores of non-official events happening all over the city.
Stockholm, Sweden, June 16, 1972. An international group of young people assembled today in Sergels Torg Square to publicize what they called the worldwide competition to pollute. They awarded a series of prizes to the Olympic champions of pollution.
The first award for each category is a lead medal. The second place is mercury, and the third cadmium. May we have the first award for automobile pollution? Can you read out? Come forward.
The awards in the case of automobile pollution, lead medal to General Motors, USA.
But the theme of the conference, Only One Earth, was seriously compromised by a technical question. Because East Germany was not yet a member of any United Nations body, it was invited to be present without the right to vote, while West Germany, a member of the World Health Organization, was given a regular seat. Because of this, the Soviet Union and most Eastern European countries stayed away from Stockholm.
The very fact that the conference began with 113 participating countries with very high-level delegations from those countries, this in itself represented a very significant step forward, because this demonstrated more than anything else the real concern of the majority of countries in the world. And those countries which did not participate in the conference did not remain away because they were disinterested in the issue. They remained away because of another political issue that didn't have any direct relevance to environment. So those who were here because they were interested. Those who were not here because they weren't interested in the environment issue.
But there were also a great many non-governmental groups interested in the environment. For them, the Swedish government set up a number of conference sites around Stockholm. Of these, the most prominent was the Environment Forum, where anyone could register and participate. One of these manifestations took place at the tent city. The keynote speaker at this whale night was Walter Hickel, former U.S. Secretary of the Interior.
The United Nations can do. And I think it would be a crime beyond belief that in the same decade that man had the technology to walk on the moon, he destroyed the largest animal on Earth. And so
But there was also an unexpected visitor from the official conference.
The United Nations organization has learned a lot from this experience, and one of the things we've learned is that we need new and better techniques of relating ourselves to the citizens groups and the non-governmental organizations, and I think this conference will show us better how to do that kind of a job, and I hope that you will continue after Stockholm the activity that you've started here.
The audience was encouraged to ask questions and add their own ideas. There were also larger meetings at the forum. International panels of speakers debated environmental questions on everything from ecocide to the politics of pollution.
We have to be extremely critical of the point of view that simply turning the old economic crank faster is going to somehow close the gap between the rich and the poor. We've tried that particular game. We've tried it now for 20 years or so, and proportionally the rich keep getting richer and the poor do not catch up.
We talk about quality of life. Well, quality of life is based upon what people think is most important when they're called upon to decide. Now, we've gone out of the period when we can just simply think that anything is possible. Man has sobered up somewhat, and the environment issue has made him realize that he does have to make very hard choices. He hasn't got it made. He can't have it always. He's got to decide, and in deciding, it's the deeper sense of values which is finally going to determine what he decides.
It must be realized that integration of environmental control programs in the economic development program of developing countries will call for additional resources which are already limited in these countries. We believe that if developed countries are genuinely interested in the improvement of the overall human environment, for after all, we all live in one world, this extra burden should be partly shared by the developed countries.
There are certain ecological principles that cannot be ignored, or if they're ignored, it will only be at our peril, principles that I would like to call the laws of nature. Too often recently, we have transgressed these laws, and we are beginning to suffer accordingly.
Are we going to hear from our governments that they're going to sign the Environmental Declaration, that they're going to look after the oceans, that they're going to take a new look at the redistribution of world resources? Okay, it sounds splendid, but what guarantee have we that you don't mesmerize yourself by saying a thing is going to happen and then somehow kid yourself that it has happened? It hasn't happened, it will be very difficult, and it'll only happen in fact if there are enough citizens and enough people in this world who have this new vision and are prepared to stay with it, not only when they're young, but when they're infinitely decrepit. In other words, right through and right on. And to me, the great importance of Stockholm is the fantastic number of people who've come to this place under their own steam, under their own expense, because they want to participate in saving the planet that they love.
You pay your own way here?
Yes, I did.
There are many people doing that. Why do they do it?
Well, I've done it because I have materials. I have a film on Hawaii that I want to show. I'm showing this afternoon. I made specifically for this forum. I want to show what the problems are in Hawaii, and perhaps through showing it here, bring attention to the problem at home.
There were many who felt that coming to Stockholm would draw world attention to their own problems. Among them, a group of victims of mercury poisoning from Minamata, Japan, engaged in a campaign against the industrial firm that had caused their affliction.
We heard about this environmental convention here.
There was also a group of American Indians from Black Mesa, Arizona.
We were able to make it here because we want to bring this message to the world because of our knowledge, of ancient knowledge that's foretold that if we do not stop these things now, we're going to suffer a great many problems later, and it may be that nature will take over.
We have been in contact with the Environmental Forum.
The group had come to Stockholm to try to stop the further expansion of a huge power station complex in the Midwest of the United States, which many feel is already one of the world's biggest air polluters.
I believe that if we're going to succeed in this task of better managing our own activities on this planet, we have to do on a much larger scale what we started to do in Stockholm, and that is involve citizens, involve scientists, involve people in their private roles in the whole process by which society decides in which direction it has to move. I think the lasting message of the Stockholm Conference will be the realization that man has come to one of those seminal points in his history where his own activities are the principal determinants of his own future, and where he realizes that he has got to subject those activities to a much more responsible management and control than he has in the past. And this has tremendous implications, not only for his relationship with the natural systems on which his life depends, but more particularly for his relations with his fellow man on this planet. And I think the awareness of this and the beginning of a program of international action to deal with this will be one of the most durable effects of the Stockholm Conference.